Hi there, this is David and welcome to my review of Final Fantasy II Pixel Remastered, currently released for the PC. All the footage that you see here comes straight from my playthrough that I did over on the Twitch. As many of you know, the original Final Fantasy II on the NES was never released in America, so we did miss out. However, that was still my first experience with the game. I vividly remember it being translated whenever I was in high school, and I was so excited to finally play the 3 lost Final Fantasy games. This one, the original 3, and also 5 on the SNES. Now, while I enjoyed 3 and I adored 5, I wasn't exactly sold on 2. In fact, I hated it, but it's Final Fantasy, so of course I had to play it, and I beat it. But then I never really touched it again. In college, I bought Final Fantasy Origins on the PlayStation and I played a bit of it, only to go and put it down again, and then the same thing happened with the Game Boy Advance and PSP remakes. I always had good intentions to go through and beat the game again, but I could never get past the obtuse mechanics, wonky encounter rate, and ridiculous dungeon design. That is, until this released where I forced myself to play through it entirely on Twitch. Yeah, I beat the game, but did I enjoy it? Not really. It was okay at first. I never did have to hit myself to gain stats or anything like that, and it does seem to be rebalanced a bit. But as the game goes on, the flaws become more and more apparent. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's go and start at the beginning. The structure of the game all remains the same. You still gain HP by taking damage, you get MP and magic by casting spells, and you gain weapon experience by attacking. It's an interesting Saga-esque leveling system combined with a relatively open-world structure, and while it did have some good ideas, it was too ahead of its time, and the technology couldn't keep up with what they really wanted to do. I understand what they were going for, and it was quite ambitious back in 1998, but you would think that over 30 years and countless remakes later that they would go back to the drawing board and try to rebuild it from the ground up while keeping the original spirit intact. Like, try to make it the game that it always should have been. I wish that they did, but they didn't. It's still the same mess that it always was. That being said though, it's obviously still better than the original at least. Certain questionable mechanics were left out, like the one where if you equipped certain weapons your magic stats would be penalized by as much as 70%. And also automatic HP gains first introduced in the PSP version are kept, which does keep grinding to a minimum. Also, it seems much easier to gain weapon and magic levels here. To me, the experience gained seems to be about doubled, so there really isn't any need to grind at all, and you can just kind of go through the game from one area to the next without really stopping to grind. However, there's still a huge problem that wasn't addressed: the password progression system. This is still just as obtuse and counterintuitive as ever. Just as in the originals, the god-awful password system is back with a vengeance. But while it was part of the course to wander around for a year and a day looking for the right person to talk to and choosing the right things to say back in 1998, it is unacceptable in today's day and age. They could have fixed this in so many different ways. Maybe put a star or something over the NPC's head that you needed to speak to, or have some sort of next objective option in the menu. Just something that would let you know if you needed to talk to Hilda or Sid or Joseph or whoever, and then what keyword you had to use to move the plot along. The entire system is just so clumsy, and there's no reason for them to keep it so shrouded in mystery. And speaking of keeping things under-wrapped, I really wish that they made the way that stats increase more transparent. Yes, stat reductions are a thing of the past. You no longer lose strength for casting black magic, for example. But it would have just been so nice to have a bit of an explanation on how you gain agility, for example. The growth rates are still very lopsided, and evasion is just as busted as ever, so you'd better disequip your armor and put a shield on to get your 99% evasion rate. It's just so obnoxious that the game can be completely painful, or a breeze depending on if you did your research beforehand. Like, it's been out for 3 decades, balance this shit already. And speaking of balance, yeah, I understand that the game is entirely open world. But whose bright idea was it to put an endgame town selling endgame spells and equipment so close to the beginning of the game? I mean, I get it, you want it to be open world, but it shouldn't be that easy to get to Mysidia less than an hour into the game. The encounter rate is still through the roof, and the bonus content introduced in the GBA port was removed. Idiotically, the trap rooms and the dungeons are still there, though they don't bring forced encounters anymore, they just serve to piss you off. And seriously, they didn't even fix all the bugs. In the original version of the game, a good strategy was to use the life spell on undead monsters to kill them. But if you do that here, you're gonna soft lock the game, as I unfortunately found out. Absolutely ridiculous design decisions were also kept in, such as enemies who have a 100% hit rate combined with a 100% chance to paralyze you, therefore putting you in a stun lock that you just can't escape from. That's not fun, that's not challenging, that's just some bullshit. And by the way, whenever I got that game over, I had the ribbon equipped. Apparently the ribbon doesn't protect you from paralysis? What kind of crap is that? Then there's mobs who cast sleep on your entire party, and really, there isn't a whole hell of a lot of status protection equipment at all in this game. But those guys come combined with zombies, who hit like a truck and then drain your HP. It is just a recipe for death. The game goes from a cakewalk to a hellscape right after you get hold of the ship. It's wild what a jump in difficulty it has. And for the record, it's not grind, strategize, or get good difficulty. It's bullcrap difficulty that you can do nothing about, and it's not fun, it's just obnoxious bullshit. Overall, this is probably the best version of the game to play, and it is worth it if you're curious as to the origins of the Saga franchise, because let's face it, that's what this game is. It's not a real Final Fantasy. However, if you have no such desire, you should probably just skip it, because it's still down there with Final Fantasy VIII and II as the worst games in the franchise. Well, that's it for my review of the Final Fantasy II Pixel Remastered. Have you played the game, and what do you think of it? Let me know in the comments, and if you like this video and want to do here on the channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon, heading on over to the Twitch for some streaming fun, or joining the Discord to hang out and chat. The links to them can be found in the video description. This has been David. If you like this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.